Brahma, approaching the Lord, addressed him thus, "My Lord, please protect me from these sinful demons who were created by me under your order. They are infuriated by an appetite for sex and have come to attack me." Purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. It appears here that the homosexual appetite for males for each other is created in this episode of the creation of the demons by Brahma. In other words, the homosexual appetite of a man for another man is demoniac and is not for any sane male in the ordinary course of life. Well, there it is, the truth. There'll be a lot of people arguing about this and upset that we said this and so forth, but this is the gospel truth. So let me read this again. Lord Brahma, approaching the Lord, addressed him thus, "My Lord, please protect me from these sinful demons," that means the homosexuals, "who were created by me under your order." So homosexuality has been there since just about the beginning of creation. They are infuriated by an appetite for sex and have come to attack me. Lord Brahma is the original Prajapati. He's, let's say, forced by the Lord to create the homosexuals. And what did the homosexuals do? The first ones, they try to attack Brahma for homosex. Purport, it appears here that the homosexual appetite of males for each other is created in this episode of the creation of the demons by Brahma. In other words, the homosexual appetite of a man for another man is demoniac and is not for any sane male in the ordinary course of life. Well, Prabhupada has not minced his words, and this is a final, without any, no, this is unequivocal that homosexuality is demoniac and therefore very sinful and not something that someone should engage in. That's why Prabhupada says in the purport, it appears here that the homosexual appetite of males for each other is created in this episode of the creation of the demons by Brahma. In other words, the homosexual appetite of a man for another man is demoniac and is not for any sane male in the ordinary course of life. This is unequivocal statement here by Prabhupada. Okay, so now we're on Canto 3, Chapter 20, verse 27. My Lord, you are the only one capable of ending the affliction of the distressed and inflicting agony on those who never resort to your feet. So, the Lord inflicts agony on those who never surrender to the lotus feet of the Lord. The word klesadas tesam anasana padam tava indicate that the Lord has two concerns. The first is to give protection to persons who take shelter of his lotus feet. And the second is to give trouble to those who are always demoniac and who are inimical toward the Lord. Maya's function is to give affliction to the non-devotees. Here, Brahma said, you are the protector of the surrendered souls Therefore, I surrender unto your lotus feet. Please give me protection from these demons. Which demons is he talking about here? The homosexuals. And therefore, in Canto 3 and chapter 20, verse 26, Prabhupada says unequivocally that uh, the homosexual appetite of a man for another man is demoniac and is not for any sane male in the ordinary course of life. Whoa, I think we're going to make a lot of people angry. Of course, Prabhupada did not mince his words. He's very unequivocal here, and he's telling the truth. And then text 27, chapters, Canto 3, chapter 20, text 27 says, My Lord, you are the only one capable of ending the affliction of the distress and inflicting agony on those who never resort to your feet, who never surrender. The words klesadas tesam anasana padam tava indicate that the Lord has two concerns. The first one is to give protection to persons who take shelter of his lotus feet. And the second is to give trouble to those who are always demoniac and who are inimical toward the Lord. Maya's function is to give afflictions to the non-devotees. Here Brahma said, You are the protector of the surrendered souls. Therefore, I surrender unto your lotus feet. Please give me protection from these demons. Now, who is he referring to as these demons? You have to look at the previous verse, text 26, which says, Lord Brahma, approaching the Lord, addressed him thus, My Lord, please protect me from these sinful demons who were created by me under your order. They are infuriated by an appetite for sex and have come to attack me. And Prabhupada's purport is to Canto 3, chapter 20, text 26. It appears here that the homosexual appetite of males for each other is created in this episode of the creation of the demons by Brahma. In other words, the homosexual appetite of a man for another man is demoniac and is not for any sane male in the ordinary course of life. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Protect us, dear Krishna, from these demons, the homosexuals. Okay, now, next, text 28. The Lord who can distinctly see the minds of others perceived Brahma's distress and said to him, Cast off this impure body of yours. Thus commanded by the Lord, Brahma cast off his body. And this has a very significant meaning. Purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. The Lord is described here by the word vivek dadyatma, darshana. If anyone can completely perceive another's distress without doubt, it is the Lord himself. If someone is in distress and wants to get relief from his friend, sometimes it so happens that his friend does not appreciate the volume of distress he is suffering. But for the Supreme Lord, it is not difficult. The Supreme Lord, as Paramatma, is sitting within the heart of every living entity, and he directly perceives the exact causes of distress. In Bhagavad Gita, the Lord says, Sarvasya chaham priti sanivista. I am sitting in everyone's heart, and because of me, one's remembrance and forgetfulness occur. Thus, whenever one fully surrenders unto the Lord, unto the Supreme Lord, one finds that he is sitting within one's heart. He can give us direction how to get out of dangers or how to approach him in devotional service. The Lord, however, asked Brahma to give up his present body because it had created the demoniac principle. We'll get to this demoniac principle in a minute. According to Sridhar Swami, Brahma's constant dropping of his body does not refer to his actually giving up his body. Rather, he suggests that Brahma give up a particular mentality. Mind is the subtle body of the living entity. We may sometimes be absorbed in some thought which is sinful, but if we give up the sinful thought, it may be said that we give up the body. Brahma's mind was not in correct order when he created the demons. Who are the demons? Well, in this particular case, they are the homosexuals. It must have been full of passion because the entire creation was passionate. Therefore, such passionate sons were born. It follows that any father and mother should also be careful while begetting children. The mental condition of a child depends upon the mental status of his parents at the time he is conceived. According to the Vedic system, therefore, the Garbhodana Samskara, or the ceremony for giving birth to a child, is observed. Before begetting a child, one has to sanctify his perplexed mind. When the parents engage their minds in the lotus feet of the Lord, and in such a state the child is born, naturally good devotee children come. When the society is full of such good population, there is no trouble from demoniac mentalities. What is a demoniac mentality? Well, one example that's being spoken about here is the homosexual appetite. And in the previous text, 26, Prabhupada uh, unequivocally said, first of all, the verse says, Lord Brahma, approaching the Lord, addressed him thus, my Lord, please protect me from these sinful demons who were created by me under your order. They are infuriated by an appetite for sex and have come to attack me. Who is he talking about? Well, in the purport, this is Canto 3, Chapter 20, verse 26. It appears here that the homosexual appetite of males for each other is created in this episode of the creation of the demons by Brahma. In other words, the homosexual appetite of a man for another man is demoniac and is not for any sane male in the ordinary course of life. Now, someone will say, oh, why did Krishna create them then? Well, because let's see, who created Lord Brahma? He created them, and then he goes to Lord Krishna and he prays, protect me from these sinful demons who were created by me under your order. They are infuriated by an appetite for sex and have come to attack me. Well, Lord Krishna ordained that such demons should be, let's say, created. Now, the question is, why did he do that? Good question. And it's going to explain it now. Okay, so the next verse, text 27, says, my Lord, you are the only one capable of ending the affliction of the distressed and inflicting agony on those who never resort to your feet. The words klesadas tesam anasana padam tava indicate that the Lord has two concerns. The first is to give protection to persons who take shelter of his lotus feet. And the second is to give trouble to those who are always demoniac and who are inimical toward the Lord. Maya's function is to give afflictions to the non-devotee. Here, Brahma said, you are the protector of the surrendered souls. Therefore, I surrender unto your lotus feet. Please give me protection from these demons. Well, the constitutional position of the living entity, when it says constitutional, that means the real identity or real position of a living entity is to surrender to the lotus feet of the Lord. So obviously, the homosexuals and the lesbians are not surrendering themselves to the lotus feet of the Lord. Therefore, they're engaging in illicit activities. Now, not only the homosexuals and the lesbians, anyone who's engaged in illicit sex is not surrendering to the lotus feet of the Lord. They are completely lusty, and they're completely in the mode of lust and also eventually in anger. So one should never associate with such people because they are completely contaminated by lust and anger. Of course, they, they have uh, used the name gay to uh, mislead people to think that it's something good. But no, it's not good. Here it is. It's said right here, demoniac. So one should not be misled by a false moniker. Look that word up, moniker. If I'm not mistaken, it means a name. So they try and give themselves a name that sounds like it's good. So they say gay, as if they're happy and we're miserable. But it's the opposite. We're happy and they're miserable. Is that right? Is that what it says, Monica? It's a name, right? And of course, let me read this one more time. Prabhupada says, Canto 3, Chapter 20, Text 26, it appears here that the homosexual appetite of males for each other is created in this episode of the creation of the demons by Brahma. In other words, the homosexual appetite of a man for another man is demoniac and is not for any sane male, meaning any uh, male who has a clear understanding of what the purpose of life is and Krishna's desires, any sane male in the ordinary course of life. Okay, so that is the definitive opinion in Krishna consciousness about homosexuality. Are there any homosexuals in Krishna consciousness, meaning like initiated devotees? Yes, there are. There are. Maybe we don't have any here, but in Berkeley, or rather known as Berserkly, there were a whole group of them. And very interesting, they used to celebrate uh, the Valentine's Day by having a homosexual uh, devotee uh, brahmana to come and lead them in the celebration of Valentine's. Well, there's no such thing as Valentine's Day. There is, but it's nonsense to celebrate it uh, as in a group of homosexuals. And how did they celebrate it? They celebrated it with uh, a uh, what do you call that? the uh, excuse me one second. Just let me think a second here. They celebrated it with the uh, uh, Lord Shiva's linga.
Mm.
You see, this whole speculation. They bring in Lord Shiva's linga, and they bring in this homosexual devotee who's a brahmana, and they celebrate Valentine's Day. And they all come and they dance around the linga of Lord Shiva. I mean, the whole thing is nonsense, but it's actually factual. It actually happened in Berkeley, also known as Berkeley, when I was there. And they invited me to the ceremony. I said, no, I'm not coming. Then they called me up and said, well, can we perform this in the temple? I said, no way. There's no way you're going to perform this in the temple. Huh?
Who did it?
Who did it? These were initiated devotees, Prabhupada disciples. There was a whole group of them in Berkeley, California. That's why they call it Berkeley, California. And so, their leader called me up and he said, Harivilas, do you want to expand the preaching of Krishna consciousness? I said, yes. He said, then you should let us meaning the homosexual group, have this program in the temple. And I said, no. He said, what? I thought you wanted to expand Krishna consciousness. Yes, I do, but not in the way you wanted to expand it. I mean, I'm laughing. It seems to be comic, but no, it's not comic. It's serious. These people are sick, mentally sick. And that's what Prabhupada says. He says, it appears here that the homosexual appetite of males for each other is created in this episode of the creation of the demons by Brahma. In other words, the homosexual appetite of a man for another man is demoniac and is not for any sane male in the ordinary course of life. And by the way, I read that verse and purport to that person who called me up to have celebrate Valentine's Day in the temple, and he was like, oh, why are you so negative? I said, I'm not negative. I just read to you what Prabhupada writes. I didn't make anything up. This is not my opinion. Of course, I agree with this opinion, but this is something that Prabhupada himself wrote. So if you don't like it, then you take it up with Prabhupada, and Krishna. Okay, then text 27, Canto 3, Chapter 20, text 27. My Lord, you are the only one capable of ending the affliction of the distressed and inflicting agony on those who never resort to your feet. So there was one homosexual. He uh, uh, he had a sex changing operation, and it didn't work so well. So he was initiated by Prabhupada. So he wrote a letter to Prabhupada explaining his predicament, that he had a sex changing operation and it seemed to be a failure. And then Prabhupada answered him. He said, look, he said, make up your mind what you want to be, a man or a woman, and then stick to it. Don't don't keep changing your mind. He said, you just stick to it. That's all Prabhupada said. He didn't say anything else. Okay, so next verse 27, text 27. My Lord, you are the only one capable of ending the affliction of the distressed and inflicting agony on those who never resort to your lotus feet or to your feet. Purport. The words klesadas tesam asana padam tava indicate that the Lord has two concerns. The first is to give protection to persons who take shelter of his lotus tree, and the second is to give trouble to those who are always demoniac and who are inimical toward the Lord. Maya's function is to give affliction to the non-devotees. Afflictions means suffering to the non-devotees. Here Brahma said, "You are the protector of the surrendered souls, therefore I surrender unto your lotus feet. Please give me protection from these demons." Who is he referring to when it says he's demons? I've already said before. He's talking about the homosexuals that he produced himself. He was obliged to do it by the order of the Lord. So this homosexual appetite has been there since almost the beginning of time. Okay, text 28. The Lord, who can distinctly see the minds of others, perceived Brahma's distress and said to him, "Cast off this impure body of yours." This thus commanded by the Lord, Brahma cast off his body. Now, we just read that casting off the body doesn't mean to get rid of the body. It means to get rid of the thought, the thought in the mind of such a thing. Purport. The Lord is described here by the words vivek tadyatma darshana. If anyone can completely perceive another's distress without doubt, it is the Lord himself. If someone is in distress and wants to get relief from his friend, sometimes it so happens that his friend does not appreciate the volume of distress he is suffering. But for the Supreme Lord, it is not difficult. In other words, the Lord knows what is our state of mind better than anyone else because he's in our heart as the Paramat. The Supreme Lord as Paramatma is sitting within the heart of every living entity, and he directly perceives the exact causes of distress. In Bhagavad Gita, the Lord says, Sarvasya chaham hridi sanivista. I am sitting in everyone's heart, and because of me, one's remembrance and forgetfulness occur. So there's two types of forgetfulness. You can forget Krishna in order to engage in sense gratification, or you can forget Krishna and come closer to him. You see, to come closer to Krishna, you have to forget that he's the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Otherwise, you would have to treat him with love and devotion, but it would have to be in a state of mind of awe. But to come close to Krishna intimately, you have to forget that he's the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Okay, so here it says, in Bhagavad Gita, the Lord says, Sarvasya hridi sanivisto. I am sitting in everyone's heart. And because of me, one's remembrance and forgetfulness occur. Therefore, whenever one fully surrenders unto the Supreme Lord, one finds that he is sitting within one's heart. He can give us direction, how to get out of dangers or how to approach him in devotional service. The Lord, however, asked Brahma to give up his present body because it had created the demoniac principle. According to Sridhar Swami, Brahma's constant dropping of his body does not refer to his actually giving up his body. Rather, he suggests that Brahma give up a particular mentality. Now, that's a very important statement that we should take, seriously. It's not that you give up your body, you give up the mentality. Mind is the subtle body of the living entity. We may sometimes be absorbed in some thought which is sinful. But if we give up the sinful thought, it may be said that we give up the body. What I like about Prabhupada's purpose is he makes everything completely clear. Right? Without reading the purport, you could be in a state of illusion the whole life, about what he's talking about. Brahma's mind was not in correct order when he created the demons. It must have been full of passion because the entire creation was passionate. Therefore, such passionate sons were born. It follows that any father and mother should also be careful while begetting children. The mental condition of a child depends upon the mental status of his parents at the time he is conceived. According to the Vedic system, therefore, the Garbhodana Samskara, or the ceremony for giving birth to a child, is observed. Before beginning a child, one has to sanctify his perplexed mind. When the parents engage their minds in the lotus feet of the Lord, and in such a state the child is born, naturally good devotee children come. When the society is full of such good population, there is no trouble from the demoniac mentalities. Well, obviously, there's not many people doing this. That's why there's a lot of trouble with children today. Children, especially teenagers, they get attracted to sense gratification, even in their very early life. Like, how does that begin? Well, it begins by playing with video games. That's how they become attracted to sense gratification. And because parents have given the child video games, when they realize, oh, this is a mistake, and they try and take it away from the child, whoa, child goes into the state of very, let's say, disturbed mentality. Gets upset, and some kids commit suicide when the parents take away the cell phone and the video games. Why don't you look at a child commits suicide because parents take away the cell phone or the video game. Let's say this is how dangerous these games are. And whose fault it is it? The parents' fault. It's not the child's fault. It's the parents' fault. Why did it give them this thing in the first place? What's it say? Cell phone. Child commits suicide when the parents took away the cell phone or the video games. You see anything? Huh? Yeah.
Popping up. Ask ChatGPT to summarize.
Back in 2018, 14-year-old game addict commits suicide after mother takes away phone.
There it is.
2018.
2008. We're in 24 now, right?
On November 18, 2023, a 16-year-old addicted to mobile games died by suicide after father takes away phone.
Whoa, that's even closer. You see how dangerous these things are? These video games and yeah.
There is December 12, 2023, a child in Texas died by suicide during an online game following alleged cyberbullying authority. Yeah.
He was being bullied
Bullied.
on the internet
Right.
after losing a game or something. Yeah. Well, Parents, don't give your kids the video games and all these. Well, first of all, who makes these video games? Let's ask that. And what is it about usually? A video game is usually about killing someone in order to advance. Now what does that do to a child's mind? It's like the parent is saying, "Oh, Johnny, come! It's time to eat lunch." He says, "No, Mom, I'm really busy. I'll do that later on." And then the mother said, "No, no, you have to come now." "No, Mom, look, I got to kill this guy in order to make a advance in the game." Now, what is the game? What are the games about? A lot of times it's about killing in order to advance in the game. This is complete nonsense, and parents buy these games for the kids. So it's not the kid's fault, it's a parent's fault to subject them to come in contact with this type of nonsense. And who are the people that make these video games? They're demons. They're complete demons. And they're doing this to sell to kids. And then the parents buy the video games, and it completely corrupts the mind of the kid. And then if they realize they made a mistake by giving the video game to the kid or the cell phone to the kid, whether they take it away, and then the kid commits suicide.
Well, nowadays there are video games
Yeah,
of Krishna and demons. Krishna killing demons.
Krishna killing the devas. You know these games. Well, obviously some devotees made that. Yeah.
How about that?
Huh?
How about those games?
What,
How about playing those
Playing
games?
those games.
Howard?
No.
What is your opinion? What is your opinion about playing these children playing Krishna video game?
I wouldn't play any video game. You're living in a surrealistic uh, surrealistic consciousness. And what? I mean, by the way, does a video game teach you anything? No, it's just entertainment. It's like watching a movie. After the movie, you say, "Oh, that was the greatest movie I ever saw in my life. It's life changing." It doesn't change anybody's life. After a day or two, they forget about the movie. No one's life ever changed by watching a movie, but by practicing Krishna consciousness, it's a life-changing experience. Yeah. The people make all these, nonsense beliefs that are not really true. Anyway, who's making the video games? They're demons. They're just doing it to make money and what does it do? It usually corrupts the child's mentality. How do we know that? Well, we know that because once the child becomes addicted to playing these video games, they don't want to do anything else. They can play 24 hours a day for days at a time. And you can look up. Some people died, not only kids, they're adults also. They die from playing these games continually, day after day. Without eating, without sleeping, without bathing, and their mind is completely immersed in these video games. Some people say, "No, no, no. I mean, I just do it for fun." But afterwards, sometimes they become addicted to these games and they can't stop. And usually, you have to advance in these games by killing someone. So, what does it do to the minds, of a kid? That you advance in this game by killing. So eventually, that will influence the mind of a kid to think that killing is a good thing. And they've been taught that by the video game. Most of the games you have to kill to go forward. Is that true? Yeah, so it's a very bad thing for children to play these games. Very, very bad. But who buys it for them? Their parents. So you can't blame the kid, you have to blame the parents. And if after the kid, has been playing video games for a year and the parent finally realizes it's a very bad thing, they try and take it away from the kid goes crazy. And sometimes they commit suicide. So it's like a drug. It's like an addictive drug. And once you're addicted, it's very hard to get off the drug. And the same thing, it's very hard to stop playing these video. So we are on Canto 3, chapter 20, verse 28. The Lord, who can distinctly see the minds of others, perceived Brahma's distress and said to him, "Cast off this impure body of yours." Thus commanded by the Lord, Brahma cast off his body. Now we know now that it doesn't mean that he killed himself. It means that he got rid of this mentality. That's like casting off the body. The Lord is described herein by the words Viviktad Dhyatma Darshana. If anyone can completely perceive another's distress without doubt, it is the Lord himself. If someone is in distress and wants to get relief from his friend, sometimes it so happens that his friend does not appreciate the volume of distress he is suffering. But for the Supreme, in other words, the friend can't understand how much his friend is suffering. But for the Supreme Lord, it is not difficult to understand how much someone is suffering. The Supreme Lord is Paramatma, sitting within the heart of every living entity, and he directly perceives the exact causes of distress. What is the exact cause of distress? In every situation, it is forgetfulness of Krishna. Anyway, we'll continue with the purport. And he says, the Supreme Lord is Paramatma, is sitting within the heart of every living entity, and he directly perceives the exact causes of distress. In Bhagavad Gita, the Lord says, Sarvasya chaham priti sanivista. I am sitting in everyone's heart, and because of me, one's remembrance and forgetfulness occur. Thus, whenever one fully surrenders unto the Supreme Lord, one finds that he is sitting, or the Lord is sitting within one's heart. He can give us direction, how to get out of dangers or how to approach him in devotional service. The Lord, however, asked Brahma to give up his present body because it had created the demoniac principle. According to Sri Swami, Brahma's constant dropping of his body does not refer to his actually giving up his body. Rather, he suggests that Brahma gave up a particular mentality. Mind is the subtle body of the living entity. We may sometimes be absorbed in some thought, which is sinful. But if we give up the sinful thought, it may be said that we give up the body. Brahma's mind was not in correct order when he created the demons. It must have been full of passion, because the entire creation was passionate. Therefore, such passionate sons were born. It follows that any father and mother should be careful while begetting children. The mental condition of a child depends upon the mental status of his parents at the time he is conceived. According to Vedic system, therefore, the Garbhodana Samskara, or the ceremony for giving birth to a child, is observed. Before begetting a child, one has to sanctify his perplexed mind. When the parents engage their minds in the lotus feet of the Lord, and in such a state the child is born, naturally good devotee children come. when the society is full of such good population, there's no trouble from demoniac mentalities. So here we can see how important it is to read the Srimad Bhagavatam, because it explains how to do things correctly and also points out how not to do things. So there's things that we should do and there's things that we should not do. So, for example, should we smoke cigarettes? No, because you're just filling your lungs with smoke. Your lungs are not meant to be filled with smoke. They're meant to be filled with oxygen. So you inhale air, which is a mixture of nitrogen and oxygen, and the body separates the nitrogen, and now you have the oxygen that gives you life. You see. So all these things are happening. We may know it, we may not know it, doesn't matter. But these are things that are keeping us alive. This oxygen and breathing keeps us alive. And many other things also, like food, keeps us alive. And bathing. Well, bathing is good. That's why devotees should bathe at least twice a day. And sometimes 3 times a day. Most people just bathe once a day. Well, that's better than not bathing. But recommended is at least 2 times a day. So you see, there's so many rules and regulations for living a spiritual life. If you want to live the life of a demon, well, usually the demons don't bathe regularly. They can go for weeks or months without bathing. There was one man that hadn't bathed for, I don't know, why don't you look this up? Man has not bathed for, let's say 20 years. Look that up. There are people like that. They don't like to bathe.
Okay.
There is someone who didn't take bath from 60 years.
60 years. Wow. My God.
Guinness record.
Is it Guinness record? Yeah. Huh? What's his name?
Iranian man.
Iranian man.
Maharaj.
He's a Haji. That means he went to Makkah on Hajj.
There is also an Indian man.
Kailash Singh.
Oh, no. An Indian man that never bathed?
But it's a religious vow.
A religious vow. What's so religious about it?
He claimed that his abstention from bathing was due to a religious vow he took after getting married. He believed that this practice would help him have a male child.
Did he have one?
Yeah.
38 years he didn't have, so it's already late.
He didn't have a child?
Looks like, because no, he had a child, he had daughters,
Uh-huh.
but for 38 years after marriage, he
Bathe.
was not taking bath. So they added like 25 plus 38.
So that was for tapasya or something?
63 years he didn't have at least.
63 years he didn't take a bath.
Up to 63 years of his age.
Up to 63rd life of his age. Okay.
So, no, Kailash
He
Singh
didn't
did not have a male child.
Ah, Kailash Singh. That's the South Indian, I think.
No, not in
No, it's North Indian.
Punjab or
Punjab.
Punjab or Sikh. Okay.
So Kailash Singh did not have. So even though he did this tapasya for 38 years, he did not have a male child. Despite this belief, not bathing would help him have a male child. He and his wife continued to have daughters.
Well, Kailash, you made a mistake. Wow. How did he believe that?
He just made up his idea.
It's called speculation. Wow. Okay. You see how thoughts get into the mind, right, somehow or other, and they begin to believe it, right?
Interestingly, nobody guide. I mean, maybe he didn't take any guidance.
Obviously not.
Or he didn't even listen to.
No, then listen to anybody. That's why it's important to have a guru, a bona fide guru. Then you get good advice, you know. Otherwise, you know, people get these ideas in the mind and they become completely, what is the word for that? Immersed in it. They can't get that mind, that thought out of their minds. And therefore it can ruin their whole life. Okay, so so in this purport, it says, this is purport 20, text 28. It follows that any father and mother should also be careful while begetting children. The mental condition of a child depends upon the mental status of his parents at the time he is conceived. According to the Vedic system, therefore, the Garbhodana Samskara, or the ceremony for giving birth to a child, is observed. Now, we are not doing that today, but the equivalent of it is chanting 50 rounds before trying to have a child. So that's what Prabhupada recommended. Because the Garbhodana Samskara, there aren't the right brahmanas. The brahmanas don't, I don't know if they do it or not anymore today. But Prabhupada said that instead of the Garbhodana Samskara, a husband and wife should chant 50 rounds together before they try to have a baby. According to the Vedic system, therefore, the Garbhodana Samskara, or the ceremony for giving birth to a child, is observed. Before beginning a child, one has to sanctify his perplexed mind. Why is it perplexed? Because it's mixed up between sense gratification and the desire to be Krishna conscious. So, when the parents engage their minds in the lotus feet of the Lord, and in such a state the child is born, naturally good devotee children come, and when the society is full of such good population, there is no trouble from demoniac mentalities. So the demoniac mentalities are all over the place now. People who are well educated actually have this demoniac mentality. They're mostly interested in sense gratification, although they are very well educated, although they have nice cars, although they have nice houses and nice clothes, but their minds have been corrupted by sense gratification. Okay. But it says, when the parents engage their minds in the lotus feet of Krishna, and in such a state the child is born, naturally, good devotee children come. When the society is full of such good population, there is no trouble from the demoniac mentalities. Haribol. Okay. If you're not willing to do these things in the right way, you should not try to be a parent. It's only meant for sincere people who are going to follow the regulative principles of Krishna consciousness to have children. Otherwise, you shouldn't do it, because you're just going to fill the world up with Varna, what do you call it? With demoniac kids. Nothing worse than a demoniac kid. Okay, so text 29. The body given up by Brahma took the form of the evening twilight, when the day and night meet, a time which kindles passion. The Asuras, who are passionate by nature, dominated as they are by the element of rajas, took it for a damsel whose lotus feet resounded with the tinkling of anklets, whose eyes were wide with intoxication, and whose hips were covered by fine cloth, over which shone a girdle. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. As early morning is the period for spiritual cultivation, the beginning of evening is the period for passion. Demoniac men are generally very fond of sex enjoyment. Therefore, they very much appreciate the approaching of evening. The demons took the approach of the evening twilight to be a beautiful woman, and they began to adore her in various ways. They imagined the twilight to be a very beautiful woman with tinkling bangles on her feet, a girdle on her hips, and beautiful breasts. For their sexual satisfaction, they imagined the appearance of this beautiful girl before them. Now, we should not think that this is just allegorical. Look that word up, allegorical. It's not. These are things that people imagine in their mind. Allegorical.
Constituting or containing allegory.
All right, then look up allegory.
Yeah. A story, a poem, or picture that can be interpreted
Interpreted
to reveal a hidden meaning, typically a moral or political one.
That's it. How about a second definition?
Settings symbolize abstract ideas or moral qualities, often to convey deeper meanings and messages.
Okay, and a third definition. Is there a third one?
This is the definition.
Okay.
Similar words are like analogy or metaphor or symbol.
Okay, then I chose the wrong word. So anyway, people imagine things in their mind. Let's put it like that. And based on what they're imagining in their mind, it influences their behavior.
One of the story about the dog who sees his reflection in the lake,
Okay.
thinks it's another dog. Then dog drops his bone in the water, trying to snatch the reflected bone.
He's seeing his own
Reflection.
seeing the shadow in the water, and he gives up the bone that he has in his mouth to get the bone that's in the shadow of the water. Yeah, that's good. That's very good allegorical lesson that no one is satisfied. That they're always looking, in somewhere else for happiness. And see, now that's the point. The real happiness is within, but everyone is looking outside of themselves. But the real happiness is within. It's Paramatma, it's Krishna. But everyone's looking in the wrong place. Once there was a man who lost his keys. So late at night, he was looking under a street lamp. And someone came and said, "Sir, did you lose something?" He said, "Yes." I said, "What was it?" He said, "My keys." He said, "Okay. Did you lose it here He said, no. He said, where do you lose it? He said, over there. He said, then why are you looking under this street lamp? He said, because there's light here. There's no light over there. Do you think he'll ever find his keys? No. So you see, that's what people are doing. They're always looking in the wrong place. And even if they know where the right place is, Krishna consciousness, they refuse to look there. They're trying to find the truth in the wrong place. Find the truth through sense gratification. Okay, so here Krishna says, Sarvasichaham Hridi Sanivista. I am sitting in everyone's heart. And because of me, one's remembrance and forgetfulness occurs. So the closest person to us is Krishna. Why? Because he's in our heart. And from him comes remembrance and forgetfulness. Therefore, we should always be praying to Krishna. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. That way, Krishna will protect us. But if we're always talking nonsense, do you think Krishna will protect you? No. If you're always playing video games don't help you remembering Krishna, to remember Krishna. That's someone said, but no, there are video games now about Krishna. No game will really help you. But if you chant Hare Krishna and hear lectures from bona fide devotees about Krishna and engage in devotional service, then you'll understand something. But, video games, even if they're video games about Krishna, are not going to really help you that much. Maybe a little bit, but very little. No game is going to help you, but serious hearing and chanting will help you become Krishna conscious. So, Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu. And so, Shravanam, Kirtanam, hearing and then repeating, and Smaranam, then you remember. Hearing and repeating. That's why repeating is a principle of Vedic, let's say, pedagogy. That's a nice word, pedagogy. It's the theory of how to teach. Look that up, pedagogy. It's the theory how you can teach.
The method and practice of teaching, especially as an academic subject or theoretical concept.
Yeah, so they teach pedagogy in schools to people who want to become teachers, but also in Krishna consciousness. The way you can teach is by good example. That's one way. And a good example is following Krishna consciousness. So you teach by example as well as teaching by words. But teaching by example is even stronger than teaching by words. Okay? So if you tell people, don't smoke, it's bad for you. And then after school, you see that the teacher is smoking a cigarette. So what good was that teaching if he can't even follow himself, right? So many times this happens, someone gives a long lecture about illicit sex, and then afterwards they get caught engaging in illicit sex. So it's all, let's put it like this. It's a bad joke. It's not a good joke. It's a very bad joke. So we have to be careful. We have to be consistent. If we're teaching no illicit sex, then we have to follow it ourselves. You can't teach people no illicit sex and then be engaged in it also. So these are practical things that we have to understand. And obviously, we have to understand Sarvasya Chaham Hridi Sanimisto. What does this mean? It says that Krishna is present in the heart of every living entity. And from him comes remembrance and forgetfulness. So Then it says, thus, whenever one fully surrenders unto the Supreme Lord, one finds that he is sitting within one's heart. He can give us direction, how to get out of dangers or how to approach him in devotional service. The Lord, however, asked Brahma to give up his present body because it had created the demoniac principle. According to Sridhar Swami, Brahma's constant dropping of his body does not refer to his actually giving up his body. Rather, he suggests that Brahma gave up a particular mentality. Mind is the subtle body of the living entity. We may sometimes be absorbed in some thought which is sinful. But if we give up the sinful thought, it may be said that we give up the body, the sinful body. So how to give up the sinful thought? Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Chant loudly. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. And keep chanting until that sinful thought goes away. Because that sinful thought is the same thing as a sinful body. Right? So we are what we are thinking. So if we're always thinking good things about how to please Krishna, then we have also a pure body. But we're always thinking about sense gratification, and our body and mind are contaminated. Mind is the subtle body of the living entity. We may sometimes be absorbed in some thought which is sinful. But if we give up the sinful thought, it may be said that we give up the body. Brahma's mind was not in correct order when he created the demons. It must have been full of passion because the entire creation was passionate. Therefore, such passionate sons were born. So that's a very important statement. What is the statement saying? This is very instructive. We should not have passionate and ignorant friends. We should have friends. We should be ourselves in the mode of goodness, and we should only have friends that are in the mode of goodness. And by continual activity in the mode of goodness, one will go to transcendental goodness. That's the type of people we should associate with. So, tell me who your friends are. I can tell you who you are. So if you're associating with people that smoke cigarettes and use foul language and always talking about sex and this thing and that thing and always talking about getting money and spending it for nonsense things, then you're a nonsense person because your friends are nonsense. And those type of friends always speak nonsensically about nonsense things. But if you associate with genuine devotees, then we can understand that you're on the right track to become a genuine devotee. So therefore, it's very necessary to regularly hear Srimad Bhagavatam spoken by genuine devotees. Therefore, we'll not be misled by associating with nonsense people, nonsense books, nonsense teachers, and nonsense philosophies. You know, there are nonsense philosophies, like for example, people who think that mutilating themselves is cool. It's the right thing to do. It's not the right thing to do. Mutilate yourself. But yet there are people that do that. So we have to stay away from those type of nonsense people and always associate with genuine devotees. But sometimes kids think, oh, but it's more fun to be with the nonsense people. No, it's not. In the end, it's just like charcoal. If you have a piece of charcoal in your hand, either it will blacken your hand or it will burn your hand. So there's no way you can win with charcoal. And the same way, there's no way you can be educated properly in the association of nonsense people. It's like you hear a class and then you go associate with nonsense people. It's just like the elephant. He goes and bathes, and when he comes back out of the water, he throws sand and dirt on his body. So, he didn't really take a bath then. So we have to, number one thing, even more important than chanting Hare Krishna Mahamantra, is to associate with devotees. Because if you associate with devotees, you will chant Hare Krishna. But if you chant Hare Krishna yourself without the association of devotees, there's a very good chance that you'll stop at some point. But if you always associate with devotees, you will continue to chant Hare Krishna your whole life. So therefore, association with devotees is the number one most important. Chanting Hare Krishna on your own without the association with of devotees, well, at some point you'll think, oh, why am I doing this? And you'll stop. But in the association of devotees, every day you're reminded why we're doing this, right? So the association of devotees is the number one important thing to do. And hear regularly lectures given by bona fide devotees. Okay, so are there any questions? We're way over time.
Maharaj, what would be the suggestion for the kids who are in that confused state? Like now that they are already born and to certain level, so there's a lot of confusion in the middle school period, and there is a subject they teach about LGBTQ plus
In the school.
in the school, and it's a mandatory. We are the seventh state to teach it mandatory. You cannot. It's not a.
Well, you can't. They don't allow the parents to keep their child out of that class.
If you are sending them to a public school, they have to take.
Oh, now we know what the solution is. Don't send your kids to public schools. Keep them at home and educate them at home. No, look, the schools today are all demoniac. It's unfortunate, and kids will become, demons by spending 12 or 20 years in the school. By the time they get their PhD, they've already become atheistic. So, very important not to put your kids in school. You should educate them yourself. Then you have control about what they're hearing and the books that they read and the things that they desire. But you put them in these schools at LGBTQXYZ, very bad, very, very bad. You don't have to put them in school. It's not, you can, it's legal also, as long as your child passes the tests. Like this, just like you have tests in school to see if the child is advancing in knowledge. The child can take the same tests by being homeschooled. So it's not necessary to put them in school. Why put them in school? The teacher's a demon, and most of the other kids have demoniac tendencies. So it's not good association. Everything depends on association. So someone will say, well, why don't you have, Hare Krishna school? Well, yeah, but we've tried in the past, but the people don't want to pay money for the teachers, right? Because although there are teachers who work for nothing, it's like myself, they are teachers who work for nothing. And there was a period where I tried this, where I was willing to educate kids till around 1 o'clock in the afternoon, starting at 8 o'clock in the morning to 1 o'clock in the afternoon. But the parents were not so gung ho about it, because they said they thought that the kid would get a better education by going to the school, which is not true. But anyway, they were not. The parents themselves were not so enthusiastic about it. The kids liked it, but the parents didn't like it. I'm willing to do that even now if there's interest in it. And you get a better education when the teacher is a devotee. But see, a teacher can be a devotee, but if they're in the public school system, they can't speak everything that they want to speak, right? They have to stick to the demon pedagogy or demon system. So having individuals, this was the way the kids were educated previously in the Vedic time. The parents would bring the kid to a grihasta brahmana, and the grihasta brahmana would have maybe 4 or 6 kids. They didn't have like 40 kids, but 4 or 6 or 8 kids, and he would educate them for free. And whatever the parents might give as a dakshina, he would accept it. And that was a very nice system. And you didn't have classrooms with 40 kids in it. You had maybe 3 or 4 or 5, 6, 8 maximum, and they would get a good education in the association of a genuine brahmana. So, and it was a good system, and it turned out kids that became really good and devotees. So we should go back to this system, not this factory education. And that's what we have today. It's factory education. When the bell rings and then the kids have to change the schoolroom, the school teacher, there's like 4,000 kids in the hallway. You suddenly realize, wow, where do all these kids come from? And they're talking nonsense and they're running or they're eating something or they're smoking a cigarette in the bathroom. It's a very bad atmosphere. Yes, it's better to educate your kids at home. They don't have to go to school. The best school is homeschooling. That's the best school. If the parent is serious. And the kid gets a better education. But people will say, no, my child won't learn how to be socialized. That's complete nonsense. Okay, you want to socialize your kid, you get 4 or 5 families who homeschool. And now the kid is socializing with other kids. Everybody, tries to find an excuse why they shouldn't homeschool. But homeschooling is much better than sending kids to school. Because most of the schools, or not most of them, all of them are demoniac. We're going to teach all kinds of, LGBTQZ, and who cares about that? That's complete nonsense. Of course, if someone says that, people say, "Oh my God, you're a homophobe." Look that word up, homophobe. It means you hate homosexuals. No, we don't hate homosexuals. We feel sorry for homosexuals. Homophobe. What does it mean?
A person with a dislike of or prejudice against gay people.
Right. Now, by the way, how did they get the name gay? That sounds like it's something good, right? And it's like you're happy. They made it themselves, to make it look as if what they're doing is fun. So they call each other gay, right? And even now, you read something, you have to refer to them as gay. Gay means you're happy. They did that themselves. Why don't you look up, when did people begin to refer to homosexuals as gays? By the way, if I'm not mistaken, the gays started that. The homosexuals started that identification. When did the word gay get into the dictionary?
1933.
Oh, yeah? Okay.
In 1933, the word of the homosexual descriptor appeared in the Erskine's Dictionary of Underworld Slang, where it was spelled gay.
So you see, the homosexuals have been there since the beginning of time, as it said in Shastra. And since the 1930s, they identified themselves as gay, and it went into the dictionary. Okay, so thank you very much. I think it's way over time.
From the French, Maharaj.
What?
12th century, from Old French, gay, G-A-I. It came from the German source, the word gay.
Yeah, but it was not used to refer to homosexuals. The homosexuals took that word to identify themselves. Okay, well, we are all gay because we're happy to be Krishna conscious, not because we're homosexuals. Haribol. All glories to Srila Prabhupada and Ki Jai. Thank you very, very much. Have a good day. Chant Hare Krishna and be happy. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. And don't stop chanting. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama. So some kid in your class is trying to pass a note to you, some nonsense thing, you write back to them, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama. Hare. You write it out. They send you a little note, with some nonsense on it, right? You send a note back. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama. Then they look at you. Huh? We should be chanting Hare Krishna all the time. Haribol. Thank you very much. Chant Hare Krishna and be happy. Very good.